In this movie, we learn about our positioning options. Positioning can be a very powerful tool as it gives us the ability to modify the placement of our elements on screen. Now, this is somewhat similar to what we discovered that we could do with our float-based designs. However, our position property is going to give us a bit more design control than just what we can do with the floats. Our position property is going to give us 4 different options when it comes to its use. So here we have those options. We have absolute, relative, fixed, and static. So first, let's go ahead and look at the absolute position option. The absolute position option is going to completely remove an element from the natural HTML flow and position it in relation to its parent. So what this will do is it will take the element and remove it from our natural flow, kind of like how the display none removed an element completely from display. So the absolute positioning will take the element completely out of the natural flow, so the rest of the content in the document will move to match the disappearance of this element. Now, of course, this element has not disappeared. It's just been pulled off of the page, and now it's outside of our document flow. Now, because this element is outside of the normal document flow, certain other properties are not going to work on these, such as float. Float is not going to work on this because float only really works whenever you have an element inside of the natural flow of an HTML document. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're working with your absolute positioned elements is that the position of that element will be in perspective of its containing element. So if we end up having a paragraph that is inside of a div and we use absolute positioning on that paragraph, it will be in orientation to the div, not necessarily to the body tag. However, if we have that paragraph and we are positioning that one paragraph and it is not inside of a div, it's just inside of our body, then it will be positioned in orientation to the body. Now, the absolute positioning option is one of the more commonly used options. Next, we have the relative positioning option. The relative positioning option will shift the element in relation to its original position. Now, the relative positioning works quite a bit differently than the absolute positioning. First of all, any changes to its placement is going to be in relation to its original position in the HTML flow. Secondly, whenever we move that element from its original position in the HTML flow, other HTML elements are not going to move when we do this relative positioning. In fact, the original location of the element is now going to appear blank. So whatever we had in that space, the space is going to be left available, showing where it came from more or less. Our next option is the fixed option. The fixed option is going to lock elements onto the screen at a specific location. In other words, they will be fixed. Now, one of the more common uses for our fixed property is to create a fixed nav bar so that that navigation bar can be seen at all times as you are navigating down a page.